Good morning. Well, that was weird. Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video, and it is once again time to update the monthly tier list with the new batch of units, this time being the Idolmaster collab Pretty Sparkle units. First off, couple things. One, I kind of added some additional titles to the tiers. So triple S now is godly, double S is great on most teams, S is really good, A is decent but limited, and the big three hasn't changed. B is now can be helpful, C is situational at best, D is not great, and F is trash. And with these rankings, I'm also going to make a cut and go through and kind of clean up a lot of stuff that I think needs to happen because we are now almost like 10 months removed from having a whole year of EX units. You know, the last meta that we got that was normal 5 stars was February, Valentine's Day of this year, and it's midway through December. So we're coming up on Valentine's Day, whether you like it or not. So it'll be almost a year that we've only had EX units, and that means that a lot of these 5 stars up here may not quite hold up now that we are in full-on EX mode. So I'm gonna make a cut. I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to go through them very, very quickly. I think most of them are pretty understandable. Old characters just don't hold up to EX characters, and that's just the plain and simple truth. So let me make that cut. Okay, we are back. We've made many, many changes. We pretty much cleared out the top tiers of any old 5-star unit, minus Raphael and Guy. Guy, because you can stun almost anything now, and any newer content, and Raphael because he's still given so much support even at almost a year old. Moved Shuna and Milim down to really good. They are really good. They're just not on every team anymore. Lumi is still really good. Trainee is still really good. And then we've got a whole bunch of EX characters. And then the skill fused Trainee and Shizu are really good if they're skill fused. If they're not, they tank. And then we've got Hinata and John. I dropped this Milim down into really good because she's not great on most teams. I did move Visions of Coleus Rimuru way, way up to double S tier because honestly, even if it's only one turn, a full hand of rainbows is like 2 protection gauges and full points and an EX ult for at least somebody, so it's really hard to beat that kind of utility, even on a team that's not really focused on blues, because the Unity Orbs then no longer care if it's nerfed blues or nerfed greens or nerfed oranges. It's just rainbow orbs. A lot of the older like DPS units went down into A, decent but limited, and it's not really. I don't really see a reason why to argue that. Like even Fount of Wisdom Hinata, like who uses Fount of Wisdom Hinata now? No one uses her. She's good on one team, and you'd never put her anywhere else. We move Shinsha and Fancy Milim down. They are limited. They are very highly specific to certain teams. Shinsha, Violet, this Milim, all these characters, they just got dumped down. Into B tier, we put a lot of the other skill fusions. I moved Shizu and the Hero 2.0 in can be helpful, which it's true, they can be helpful, but you don't see these two characters on every single team ever that I try and make in the game. C, situational at best. Dropped a lot of people down into here, including some EX characters, including my beloved Soka, because I personally don't use her at all unless it's on the Gods of Destiny team, and then she'll never see the light of day again. She's there as a support slot, and that's not good enough to warrant being higher. Mirren and Yom, they're good on the Vengeance team, otherwise they're kind of mid. Veldora and Shuna, like they're just some wonky, weird Vengeance characters. Like, yes, they have Vengeance, that's great, but they're not doing what Raphael does. They're damage support, and the Vengeance team is not damage. Both, a lot of Lumis got moved down. You're terrible. You were highly situational on a stacking physical team, of which we haven't gotten one of those in quite a while. And then this Lumi is like, you got an 80-point light buff and stun resistance, but now that everything doesn't have stun, it's like you're good in one stage and now. And so I think this is a fair cleanup now that we've hit 2 years. So let's now move on to actually ranking the new characters. So first off, we'll start with the skill fusion for Dark Milim and Water Alice. Water Alice skill fusion barely did anything. Gave her an extra 10% on her water resistance down and her pierce skill. Doesn't mean jack. So she's not going anywhere. Dark Milim, though, she did get an upgrade because she went from buffing her just herself for 15% attack to all dark allies get 25% attack. I don't think that quite pushes her skill fusion up into here until we get maybe a few more dark units, because we've got Visions of Coleus, Rimuru, and Albus. Well, we've had a few more dark units along the way, but dark doesn't have too much going on for her right now, so I'm gonna leave her in S tier alongside her or another baseline unit. She is a very good unit. She's really good, and she's still really good. And now moving on, we have the new summonable units. We're gonna start with Mirai, and I'm gonna be honest with you, she kind of suffers the same issue that Soka does. They both have the Future Hand of Green, which, okay, cool. And they both have limited style attack buffs. Soka is you need certain characters on certain forces before it gets to full power, which is 45%. And those forces are, they're kind of large, but also I'm not bringing her just for pure attack support. There are other units that do that are not conditional. And then Mirai is you need to activate the skill, and then you need to send a certain number of green orbs to get that attack buff at max power. So if you don't use the skill, you get nothing. And if you use the skill and you have no greens, you get nothing. And if you use the skill and you have one green, you get a 2% attack buff. Great. Awesome. It's totally worth it. I don't like it. It's highly situational. It's overly complicated to activate, and it really gets in the way. The potential to climb higher is there, but you need to activate the skill multiple times. You need to make sure you have full hands of greens, and that's asking way too much out of what top tier units are doing. So she's gonna exist down in C tier situational. Next up, Shizuka is actually a pretty good unit for stacking teams. We're gonna move her up into really good because she is healing you while stacking Weakness Strike, and that is unconditional. Everybody can get Weakness Strike as long as you're, the DPS unit and you have type advantage. So that's really great. And she's a healer, which it's not actually a heal skill, so it's not sealed like the body and spirit changing skills of, Trainee and Shizu, and well, Raphael's not a healer, but his skills are body and spirit skills. They get sealed. Her heal will remain unchanged unless you somehow get an attack seal. And then her other skill, which is also the live mode, which again is conditional at best, which is why Mirai suffers down here. But because she has that extra ability to, heal and Weakness Strike and give you a stacking kind of buff, I would move her into really good. Now, she's not really going to fit on a blue stacking team, not very well. You can use her like a few times before she gets a little expensive. So moving forward, depending on how many more green teams we see, she might take a little bit of a dive into A tier, but right now I'm going to leave her in S tier. And then we have Shuna, and Shuna is just the green version of Blanc, which means that she's going right next to Blanc because she can work. Weakness Strike, well, Synergy and Synergy Power is also unconditional. It's unbiased. Anybody can benefit from it. And the double green swap, alt swap is, if you're on a green team, you're probably going to use her. She's a fantastic unit. Single target fire, okay, fine, whatever. But Blanc is buffing and alt swapping. Shuna is buffing and alt swapping. I see no reason why we would separate those two. They're built for two different styles of teams, but they work incredibly well on any blue team or any green team. So those are the summonable battle unit rankings. Let's move on. All right. Moving on to the free-to-play battle character Tsubasa. She's got a special convert for greens, which, we only have one of those, and that's Traya. So that automatically gives her some value. And then she has the attack buff, which is only for certain forces, and you do need to take ults. You need to be hit by ults to actually gain any power from that. So it starts at 10%. It can get up to 60, but you got to take 5 ults or have 3 characters get hit with an ult multiple times, because if they do an AoE ult, that's 3 stacks, that's 30%. So that's cool, but that's a little too limited, especially when you're already being limited to certain forces get the attack buff. So she's B tier. If you need a special converter for greens, then yeah, sure, fine. But Trya is all that in a bag of chips. So that's all you need. So not very much time spent on her. I don't. I could even move her down into C tier maybe because she's so limited. In fact, you know what? I will put her there. Rong is at least giving Pierce buff to everybody. You know, that's magic, so that makes sense. And he's buffing oranges, and he's meant to be running an orange team. You need to be run not only on a green team, but an idle, pretty sparkle team. So, yeah, okay, we'll put her in C tier. My apologies, Tsubasa. And then we come to the protectors, Chloe and Idol Rimuru. We'll start with actually with Chloe, who honestly, if you have a pretty sparkle team, then she can help you clear most beginning stuff because you can be invincible. I mean, she's got the double orb change, which I know it really sucks, but the fact that you can be invincible and you can just go into Conquest Millum as a new player and not take any damage for multiple turns if you've got a correct team built, I think puts her at least into B tier. She's not quite A tier, but I think she's still generally actually fairly good. Even though she doesn't have, the stacking buff that Rimuru does or the skill reset that Rimuru does, the pure reason of invincibility is great, which is also the reason why Albus is in the same tier with the Vengeance. So I think that's fair ranking. Idol Rimuru, I'm gonna put up into S tier. He is triple converting to greens. He is resetting skill costs passively, and he is stacking magic attack. So you can make him a short-term unit. You could make him a long-term unit. It really can go either way. The only thing that really holds him back is that he doesn't give you any points or raise your skill cap. But to offset that, he does lower your skill cost by 10 every turn, which you can play around with, but it's not super impactful as Vengeance or Trainee guaranteeing blues and giving you 40 points and putting defense down on the enemy. I think that's just a little too overpowered to move Rimuru up into godly. So that is the tier list update for the month of December of 2023. Huge reorganization. Again, I mean, this is my tier list. You all can fight over it in the comments if you want. I think it's pretty fair. But, let me know how you guys feel about it. That's it for me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all next month for the next update.